Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here Friday, February 3rd. Yes, January 2023 is history. It is February. Hard to believe, huh, Barry?
Man, I just, we might time the markets, but, personally, I'm always running behind. Unbelievable.
Man, it's going fast, but
Yes.
that's part of life.
Mhm.
Uh, there were some fast moves in the market this week, and we're going to cover a lot of ground again on
We
this
got a lot
show.
going on this week.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the 30-year wheat, corn, soybeans, sugar, cotton, cocoa, coffee. Barry's going to cover the big five, as we call it, which is ES, bonds, crude oil, gold, the dollar, the euro, and copper. So we got a lot of ground to cover. Let's dive right into it. Bitcoin, as we resurrected Bitcoin last week, and it's holding steady up against that half square there. We know our two decision points on this chart. By the way, all the levels that you see will be updated on our Google Doc spreadsheet, which when I post the link to the video, I'll post the link to the spreadsheet as well. But this half square here is your resistance, and we're banging up against that. And the full square down here is support. Until either one of those breaks, just expect this channeling. The one thing I did notice and I would point out is the lows are all sitting on top of that entire structure from, say, late August, early September.
Right.
So that's bullish. I mean, as long as it stays there, it's building a platform to push higher and get through this. But
Well, it's better than the lower range, but if you take a look at the entire range, say from June, it's
right,
really that half square to half square where within a full square block,
no question.
half, and then you go another half to the bottom, right?
Yep, right there.
So we're in that. Yeah, sure, we're at the upper end of it, but that's the block, very clear, right?
Yeah, I mean it sort of reinforces that the decision point is here. We either get above it and stay on top, or we false break it and come through, or we just get stuck under and then we got to go down and test here. It's pretty simple. So nothing too elaborate yet, but there is activity and movement, and it is a risen from the dead that we saw in November, December, and January. So
We have a 3 months coming up in February. Well, this month it'll be almost a 3 month move, right? So
yep,
90 days.
yep.
So that
A
might.
lot of 90s showing up in a lot of different markets, which we'll get to. But let me throw it over to you. Let's dive into the big five and see what happened this week.
All right.
Oh boy, sitting right on top of that resistance level we had last week is now support.
Well, that 4140.
Yeah. Yep. And that was the resistance last week.
Yeah, that's right. And we looked at the half square. If we can break out of that, probably going to go test that. And yeah, we kind of ran up there without a whole lot of trouble.
Right.
We got a lot of interesting stuff going on this week, so I wanted to spend a couple of minutes highlighting those. And one of them is we have this 45-degree run from low to high, and that's something we always want to notice. And we have a 112 degree, but 112 coming off of this low. That's important. And we are 75 degrees from the high. This is 60-degree square 60 plus 15. So they've got 75 here. And what we have here is if we take the September low, which I feel like that's the low I'm working off of because all the cycles kind of ended there. And this was kind of a,
plain old fuckery.
Yeah, false move. If you measure from that, what we have is a 50% correction here. So you can see if you go off of that low.
You also got 90 from there too, timing.
Yeah, we have 90 in time. Bars. And we're up 75, more or less, which is close to 72. You can see this here. Right?
Yep.
And 41 40 is right in there. So it's a critical, of course, it's a decision point, like you say.
Always, yep.
We have to stop there, and on square 52, we went square and a half. But the 60, it's easy for me to look at things. Let's use that for now.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we say? Well, I made a little post today on Twitter, like, 4140 is really the level to watch. And if we did indeed square out up here, of course, it's not exactly on the line yet, at least on the 90. We have till Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, I think 4140 is the level to watch, especially with these other cycles coming in about the same time. And if 4140 gets taken out, then we're probably going to test this 40 area down here. I have 4038. And well, that should be the support. If we take that out, then we have a whole different thing happening. And this was a major high for the time being. Okay.
So your line in the sand is 4038.
4140 is really the line, because given the cycle, if we're blowing through, we should really blow through this without a whole lot of pullback. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get down to 4038, it's already kind of weakening, meaning I don't see it running right back up after that. If we get down to here, we're probably going to consolidate up in this area, in this block.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, are we getting consolidated above the block or below the block?
Right.
And if we do it below the block, then 3900 area becomes some kind of a serious magnet. So it kind of cascades down, but 4140 is the one first to watch. It's fairly paced out, 100 points, 100-point increments for some reason, but that's just what it looks like. Yeah. So the number is there. We have potential time in place, and that's what we'll look at for next week. And looking at the weekly, it looks okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we can come all the way down to, 30, let's say 3960 and still be fine, I think, as far as the weekly goes. And if we say maybe perhaps we have a high in place, from either point, we're above the halfway square, 50% of the square. So it's in a strong position, about 4,000, and we took out the channel. So something has shifted. We can't say nothing happened. Then again, bear markets can be really tricky. So not to get pulled in too easily, right? Unless you're working off of key lows, like low down here we were talking about. We talked about the consolidation here, doing it above 3,800. So that was positive. It broke into this area. Then we came back to test the 3916. So, it's being very technical so far. And, well, I expect that to continue. So next week, I think 4140 is the level to watch. If you break that, then we're probably going to come up and test 4,000. But if we crack 4038, this area, then it could be more of a drawn out sort of a thing than a quick pullback and a bounce.
What are you looking at on the upside? Where's your resistance now?
That's a good question. I was thinking if we get going, we're probably going to do a false break here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's like 4325, 4350. So I would have to go with that. I would say it's up in that area. 4250 is one. Let me look at my other chart here. 4325. Yeah, 4325 would be a key level. That's a good question. Let me put the number in there. So that would be the next level to challenge. And yeah, but the fact that I don't have any numbers worked up, it probably tells you that I'm looking for some kind of a pullback, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess that's a little bit of a giveaway. We'll see how it works out next week. But those are the level to watch. Meaning, look, if 4140 kind of holds and we manage to hang out up here, I'll take some buy signals coming off of that. And if we somehow get under it, I'll be willing to sell it. So that's how I look at it for the short term. And we have that big ABCD potentially working out, which we looked at in the weekly chart, which is, that's up in 44.70 area. So that's quite a ways.
One level at a time.
Yeah, one level at a time for now. Till we figure this out. I mean, if you take the broader perspective, we're kind of been range bound since May. Right here, right? I mean, look at it. Bulk, 90% of the action is right in here. And we're still in there. So nothing. So that's why we have to trade short term. We're boxed in for now.
Agreed.
All right, moving on to bonds. Well. That 132 is holding fairly solid. And our support, we drew up the box here, right around 129.5, we said. That's that quarter line box. There's dotted line. And the 132. And we talked about it being, probably hanging around under 132 for a while, and it did this week. And I know we had some timing come in. So it's possible if we take out 29.5 to the downside, looking at that ledge there, that will probably go down and test a square. So 123, 124 becomes key level of support if we take out 29.5. So that's a big drop. A lot of points in there. So that would be a worthwhile trade.
It looks set up to me.
Yes, I agree.
For a short side trade.
Yep, I agree. And look at these tops, right? 132, just rock solid. If it had to go, it would have gone.
And you had that false break in the middle top there too.
Yeah, we had that.
Pushed up and failed.
And technically, this was a low we were looking, we were expecting. And, we pushed a little bit higher above that to 132, but that's normal. So this looks like as much hard as it can press without sellers coming in. And you can see the sellers are all just sitting right there, so right in line. And the break of that would be, So that's that. Looking at the weekly bonds, well, we had this equal moves. That would be this leg to that leg. And, that's always a good point to, like you say, it's a decision point when that happens.
Yeah.
And, well, here we have it. And I would say time to take any sell signals. And we also talked about this range down here. I was looking for it to finish up at least coming down to the 144 degree line. We didn't clean up. And I'm afraid if we come down now, he's probably going to take that out. So because of the time that we spent, and, we'll see. So basically, we're looking to take sell signals on this. Moving on to crude. Again, our brackets are golden these days. Not to bang our own gong, right?
Stuck in that 73 to 83 range.
What are you going to do, right? So here's 83. God knows how long we've had it there. I don't even remember.
Since November, I guess.
At least, right? It's in here. And the 73.50. Well, we traded from one end to the other, basically. And I'll tell you what, though, if we take out this square, this 120 down, which is kind of where we landed after we got out of the this arc. If we take out the 120, it's probably not going to be pretty. So we got to be careful here. It's possible we do a false break here.
Right.
This is going to be a key decision point when we get there, if we get there, and it looks like we are. And I'll make a post on Twitter maybe over the weekend. I'll get some work done. I'm a little behind on crude, working up a crude chart. So I'll get on that. But for now, not much had to be worked out.
Right. We've been stuck in the range. Not much to do.
2 months we've been in the range, not much. But just like, what we learned with Bitcoin, just when you're getting bored with it, that's when it's ready to move. So I feel like after 3 tries, just like the bonds, we have 3 shots here along the bottom line. So if we take out this 120 outside of a false break, which would be a hell of a trade to the upside, it could get a little nasty, could be a washout. And so we'll see. Looking at the weekly crude, well, last week, I remember clearly talking about, hey, we're holding about 45. That's kind of positive.
Yeah. And then you
And
get this week.
but it's the inside bar, it hasn't quite proven, but let's see if we can hold above it. Well, we couldn't hold above it, right?
Mm-mm.
And so this, and we have a trend line here, that we broke. So that the fact that we couldn't hold it here, coupled with the multiple tests we saw on the daily, this is not looking so good for crude. So then again, we've been in this area before, but let's see what happens. Like I said, if we take out those, if we get out of the box, we definitely have to be alert to this, because we could have a washout, some kind of a wash down into this area, which is the box we've had here for years, for months and months, and that could end up being the new support level. And I'm pretty sure how we got there. Now maybe the score is 60. Yeah, 60 is working in here, which is it's a vibration of 90, right? Well, 52 is still here, so I'll leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
All these numbers are, they're all kind of pointing in the same direction. We squared out here, and really didn't, that should have really given us a good run up, and we didn't. It kind of ran out of gas halfway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible we, this time around, I feel like it's if it's outside of a false break, we're going to probably go test down here or worse. So let's be ready for that. Enough sideways. It's probably time to move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we take out 73 and the low we had in December.
It appears there's going to be some kind of cleanup move there. Either they're going to clean out the stops and reverse it, or they're going to clean out the stops and run it down.
Well, the thing is, as we go down the line, you'll see a lot of things are setting up. We have a squaring out of the S&P we talked about earlier, right? I mean, look how many things are kind of getting activated, right? We have this timing up there in the S&P. Bonds, not, came off of the upper end of the range, okay? And crude is heading towards this low. So everything's kind of moving towards something new, feels like. And we're also 240 days out from the high. So, we got a potential square down here next week, right? Very close. And speaking of things that are moving, well, here's gold. We left it last week saying, hey, this 72, this 1915 area is going to be key. And if we can consolidate and hold above it, then we can probably run higher. Well, clearly, we reversed on Thursday, outside reversal. That's a big sign, right? And, we got under the 72. So this is also looking like it might be done for the time being.
Yeah, this leg looks done.
And now it is done, because here's your 90 by 90 square.
Yep. We did 90 by 90.
Right. And that's the same 90, you see that September low coming off of that. And 90, you can see like these are lower lows. I mean, this is a quick thing on GAN, but you can see how these are lower lows. Now, I didn't put the square there. I used the low, what I felt was the correct one coming off the other cycles. And, why would it hit, 90 by 90 and just reverse like that if it was nothing, right? None of the other ones would have given you that.
It's also a good point, Barry, is that's the reaction you see when you have a really definitive square.
Right, exactly.
It's not messing around. It hit the 90 and reversed hard.
Yeah. None of these hanging around.
No.
Yeah. So that looks, that looks good. And I would expect gold to correct now for the time being, and 1814 being the next support level. And again, now that the leg is done, I'll get some work done on gold for next week. But for now, we know we had a square. We know 1915 couldn't hold. So we probably terminated the up leg. High probability, right? So I'd leave it at that.
And the key thing too is we're bullish on gold. Now we want to see where do we pull back to? Can we hold the half square? Do we hold a
Exactly.
decent level? Can we make a
Right.
higher low?
Yeah.
This is the time when you really want to watch it, because if it does any of those things and gives us a bullish setup, the next wave is the big one.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. And well, like for a lot of the other commodities, right? So
Yep.
it's pretty much the same story. But
We're
this
going to
looks
see
good.
that.
Just wanted to show that. Um, let's take a look at the weekly gold. Again, here's our box, 1919. We left with last week. I said, listen, you know, with this kind of a run up, if it's strong enough, we had to hold 1919 without any problem. And well, we didn't. And we basis weekly, you know, I had 1881, and you can see where we came and stopped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we take out 1881, you can see the big gap. So, you know, there's definitely room to run, and it might not run all in 1 week, but we're definitely on the weaker side.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you talked about the, you know, the bigger picture. So if you look at that, starting from this low back in 99, you can see how important this 180 degrees up is. So this is really critical stuff. And that's why these lows, you know, we were trading off of those sort of fearlessly, because they're key levels that should hold along these lines. And it's testing also sort of the apex of this triangle here. So it's in a good spot. I wouldn't say, you know, gold's done forever or anything, but I think it's another opportunity to get in at lower prices. So
yep.
for now,
Agreed.
we'll leave it at that. Moving on to copper. Copper also squared out. And we had a nice run, and we talked about this time frame 135 coming up last week, I think, or maybe, yeah, I think last week. So now it looks like a decent pullback would be around 380. So we'll wait for that, and the run up was good. That's all I have for copper. Let's look at the copper weekly. Well, here's the weekly. It's still very bullish. And the weekly support looks at around 390 and 374. I mean, these are key levels, these two. I'll just leave it there. So we'll see how it plays out. But this is I'm looking at this as a correction in a bigger move.
Right. So it's another bullish market where, okay, we were talking last week about gold, silver, copper, you know, they're probably extended, going to correct. We want to watch that correction, because that's going to tell us a lot about what the next move is going to be like.
That's right. Yep. Let's move on to the dollar. Yay.
Isn't it interesting, Barry, though, all these markets that we've been talking about came to inflection points in a similar time frame, even though their patterns are different and they're in different phases and completely unrelated. Everything is there was a shift this week, pretty clearly.
Yeah. Well, cycles, eh?
So that's right.
And so last week we talked about the dollar coming. Actually, I mentioned that, you know, we're coming into a 90 mark, and that's a good place to turn. And we went to the quarter square, the second square. We went to the quarter. Here's an eighth quarter, and well, we sort of U-turned on the 90. Looks good so far, and I think that's a fair correction. You know, a 90-day correction is a very healthy sort of a bull market correction, right? For in the bigger picture. So if we get above this 103.50, I think dollars, the heat is back on. That's what it looks like. We'll just keep it at that.
And it'll put pressure on commodities if it happens too.
Yeah, and they look like they're starting to squirm a little bit also.
Yep.
And so let's take a look at the weekly. So weekly, you can see we had that target box drawn up. And if you guys are new, you can go back and look at the older episodes, and you'll see we had this box drawn up. That's 90 down, 90 up from the low. And this was a big high that we called out, you know, as it came in and before. So it looks like, you know, we did a decent correction. And that's a hell of a reversal for a weekly bar. Look at that, right?
Massive.
We took out 2 weeks of price action in one.
Double outside reversal weekly.
Yeah. So moves like that are no joke, and usually it has decent follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see how that goes. Not that it's going to fire straight up, but at least we know, we had a 3-month pullback, stopping at the right place. So now we can look at the long side.
Those puts on the euro look pretty good.
Yeah. So euro, pretty much the same story, right? I mean, last week we left the 144 being the key level to watch here. Now that he took off this, sat on top of that. So these are all, if you go back and look how the one thing is how we trade these things is step by step. And you can see here, we came back to test it, the 216 down, right? We broke out, came back to test it. Then we broke out of here, came back to test it, got on top of the half, came back, pulled back, and as soon as we reversed on top of that, it's a game on again. Ran up to the 144, stalled around for a bit, poked out for a breakout, nothing doing, we reversed. And look where we, reversed, and we basically stopped, right?
Right at the bottom of your box there.
Right at the bottom of the box, and also the level here.
Mm-hmm.
So the key thing to watch next week is, hey, listen, if we take this out, I think that confirms that rally is done, which was about a 50% pullback, right? So yeah, and that's as good as they get in bear market. So that's where you want to be activated. So that looks good. So I would be looking at that to the short side as long as the high is in place.
And just to show you how the market messes with you, the Fed was dovish, relatively dovish, and the ECB was very hawkish. So you would have thought logically the reactions in the markets would be different,
right?
But they're selling the euro and they're buying the dollar.
Right.
Which is why you cannot listen to the news. You have to look at the technicals.
Exactly. Always. News is really about misdirection.
Good God, man.
Right? I mean,
it's an expensive lesson to learn, but man, the sooner you learn it, the
thing
less...
is, I don't know if anybody really trades off the news, but what happens is when you hear it, it definitely affects your...
It affects your thinking, right?
Well, it affects your orientation, right? Yeah, exactly. Even if you have charts, unless you're disciplined and you're following your system, like we always encourage, unless you're following your system and you're trying to sort of guess at these things, then it gets all very delusional very quickly.
One of the best pieces of advice I got early on from one of the old veterans was, don't read the Wall Street Journal. Anything in there is not worth the information, because it's usually planted by somebody who's talking their book and wants to get a reaction. He said, don't read it. Cancel your subscription. Stop reading it.
Well, if you're not trading, it's fine. You can kind of keep up with things. But if you're going to,
if you're trading, he said, do not read it.
I agree. I couldn't agree anymore. So let's take a look at the weekly. And there's our 72 degrees. We're looking for resistance at that level. And I think price found it.
Yep.
Looking good. I don't have anything else to add to that other than it's a 50% correction. You can see 144 is right there. And we'll leave it at that. And that's quite a steep run up, and that looks like a bear market correction. Bear market corrections don't normally give dirty legs, meaning dirty, choppy, sloppy kind of moves, right? It's a very blistering kind of a move, very fast. And that's what we got. So it looks good. Looks like we have I would say very high potential for that to be the high.
And if that is the high, it's also another comment that we've seen is when a market can't even make it to the ABC level, it just shows inherent weakness.
Right. Yeah, there's no equal legs here. So. We'll see. Yeah, that's all I got. So not a whole lot to talk about because things are sort of moving the way we expected, and now it's just kind of playing through and watching your systems, waiting for the signals to show up in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's all I got. Let me put it back to you and
Okay.
cover all the commodities. I know you got a bunch of them today, so
Yeah, we'll run through them quickly because it's a lot similar to what you have. Is there's no major moves for decisions, but there are things are unfolding, and you got to watch them.
Right, good. And also, just a quick reminder: if you guys like the work we do, please hit likes and subscribe, and also share the videos with other people. And what else? That's all they can do, right? Like,
Yeah, that's it.
and
Hit
also
the
hit the
bell.
alerts.
Yeah, hit the bell.
And do all those things that would help us grow, and then it'll be more fun. All right, let me put it back to you.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Good coverage.
Thanks, man. Hey, Ben, I see it had a nice bounce off that full square.
Very nice from last week,
right
huh?
there, and
Yeah.
And little past definitely made the ABCD. Can't say it didn't.
Yep.
A lot of enthusiasm.
No question. Well, I mean, this is what we were talking about last week. This was the important point, right? Because we ended the week. Let's see, there's Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So we were right here. Last week we closed right here.
Right, right.
And we said if we can hold this, we stay on top, then we're going to challenge the half square.
Right.
We did that. Look at so this was
that was on Wednesday.
That was Wednesday. Look at Thursday's low.
Right.
Right on the half square.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have an inside day today.
Inside day. And if you look at the bigger pattern, we got a Gartley working in there.
Yes,
if you take the high in August, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Down into your ABCD gets worked right into a Gartley.
Let's look at this.
Well, that's what that ABCD is, right? It looks like, I mean, it's part of that.
Let's show it. Let me get rid of the other stuff.
Well, it's right in the box, right in the
I think it's a pretty one.
Target box, right? Well, man, that's about as good as they get.
Yep.
It's at the upper end of it. Yeah, looks good.
So for this week, again, we have the bounds that we're working with. Half square here. We got to stay on top of this half square.
Right, right.
Call it 12,500. That's the key on the downside. On the upside, you're talking about 13,120.
Right.
So we know where the decisions are going to be made, and if we get stuck under here, then it's going to come back to here. Odds favor we're going to come back and test here.
Right.
But the Gartley was nice. I mean, it fits with everything we were talking about when you were doing your review. Something finished here. What that is, we don't know yet. We have to see how price reacts out here. We could just go sideways. We could chop around, crisscrossing this half square, or we could see a sharp pullback.
Yeah.
But the character of this next pullback tells us a lot about, okay, this was a corrective move. It retraced, the previous decline, a percentage of the previous decline, but it's no new bull market.
Well, looking at all the other markets that we're watching, putting in cycle highs or lows or moving into key spots, it's sort of a hint. It's telling us this time window is not just like any others. It holds some value, so we have to really focus, and that's what we're doing. So.
The key with a lot of the markets, is this looks like a bear market squeeze, right? Bear market rally, just really aggressive pushes higher. What does the next pullback look like? Do we get aggressive selling? Can it not? Does it lose this? Does it lose this? Does it come back to here? In a bull market, that probably doesn't happen.
Right.
If it's a bull market, maybe we hold here. Maybe we sit on top of these, these other highs. So, the debate about whether it's a bull or bear is not what's important. What's important is watch the character of the price action, and then we can assign probabilities to what's going to happen next.
Right.
But I think something finished here. We didn't quite make it up to the full square. We did 7/8. But let's watch this coming week and see. Do we triangulate here? Does it just chop around before the next move? That would be a bullish sign. If we could triangulate here above the half square, that would be bullish.
Yeah, your half square is like my 4140 on the S&P. So if it holds above, it's very strong. If it doesn't, then yeah. Well, if it doesn't, then we have the other half square that's sitting at the August high.
At the August high, let's over here.
Right there.
Yeah, that would be next. So we'll see. But they had a good week. No question the bulls had a good week. Now, since something ended there, is it long term? Is it short term? Price action will tell us, and that's what we're going to be watching. On the commodity front, it wasn't a super duper active week on the stuff we were talking about last week, but I wanted to do a quick review of the grains and a quick review of the softs, because those are the markets that are setting up for really bullish moves. Something like sugar has had a bullish move. Something like cotton is still sort of triangulating and still, consolidating before it makes the next move. Wheat is in a similar situation. Corn and soybeans, I mean, they look like they're ready to launch. Now, the one fly in the ointment is, remember, something changed this week, and we need to watch the price action over the next day and week, the next days and weeks coming up, to sort of see how each market is affected by that cycle, because they're not all going to be affected the same. But price action will give us clues and tell us about that. So let's dive in and see what we got. Here's wheat. Why I wanted to show this one is we broke the downtrend line, which was really important, right? Because that had been holding price since October.
Yep.
And we got stopped, not unexpectedly, we got stopped at the full square. So that is our key level for wheat right now. We're watching to see, do we get stuck under here? And then it's not looking so bullish, because you don't have a lot of room between here and the low. So this key level is, call it 775. If we can get above 775 and sit on top of that on any pullbacks, then we know we could say this low is good. This was a false break, and we look like we're going to be heading up I-95 north. If we get stuck under here, then it's back to the drawing board, right? And then we got to see, okay, what do we go sideways under here? And can we hold above this low? Okay, still pretty good. If not, maybe we got to go down and do another clean out, and find support here on the half square. So this is the key level for the coming week. Anything else catch your eye here on the wheat chart?
Well, I mean, my feel is the correction is over, and we definitely have to be watching this. Not just watching, we should be, as soon as we get over that full square line, I think it's we can start trading it.
Agreed.
Yeah,
that's the go point. All right, let's jump on the next one. Here's corn. Now, this is what we want to see wheat do, right? You want to see it get above a full square and remain on top. And we're really getting squeezed here with this downtrend line right now in this full square line. But look, all week price stayed above. Right. Even today on a washout, still hit, still stayed on top of that square. So the key level in corn that we want to watch this week is this 672. As long as we stay above 672, we take out these highs, it's off to the races here. So that 672 is key in corn. If we lose 672, then we got to see, okay, where are we going? Can we put in another higher low like we did here and here? Do we have to come down and test this half square? We'll see. But right now, corn's holding the full square, which is really important. That's the key for me this week. What's the key for you on corn, Barry?
I think we're there, just waiting for you to, make the next bar higher above those two highs.
It really looks like they're just waiting to enter the launch codes here.
No, yeah, these are worth trading now. They're in active positions, so you can start taking your position starting here.
Agreed. Corn is in that book, and this one, soybeans, is also in that book.
Mm-hmm.
It's ready.
Yeah, we tested the half square, came off of it nicely. So
yep. And have a beautiful series since this low that came in right on the half square, which was an ABCD down. We've been, we did our little triangulation here, broke out of the triangle, and have just been grinding. But what happens a lot of times with these commodities, this grind then turns into a launch. Then you start seeing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight days up when these things get running.
Right.
So the key here, we hold the half square. We're in good shape.
Yeah.
So beans looks ready. Beans and corn look ready. Wheat has some work to do, but they're all worth watching. All right, now let's jump on and take a look at the softs. This is one we talked about last week, and we had a pretty good week in sugar.
Yeah.
And again, see, look at the pattern. Here's the lows come in, half square, tested the full square, couldn't make it, held the half square. Next time we came up to the full square, we got through and sat on top. And here was the real test, right? This was when they were really pushing and seeing who they could grab. They took out these lows, so they grabbed the stops, but the full square held. And now look at the move coming out of here.
Right.
So the key level here for the next upside progress is going to be when we can take out this full square, call it 21 3/4. Take that out, and we're moving into another square, pushing up higher again. But the key thing, look where price is compared to the year and a half consolidation.
Right.
We're above it all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all the way down here. So we could pull back to this half square again and still be really, really bullish, because all we'd be doing is sitting on top of the upper end of this big 18-month consolidation. So sugar looks good. Strong price action. I love seeing these move, where the moves up are really, really strong and aggressive. And then the consolidation is just sort of inside days and chop. That's a good sign. Anything else catch your eye on sugar?
Well, I think other than the 3 drives, which is just a little bit of a caution.
Yep.
But I think if the half square holds, that would finish up the counter trend nicely and look for higher prices. Might not run up all of it in 1 week, but I think it's definitely worth trading to the long side.
No question. All right, let's go to the next one. Here's cotton. We've been tracking this one into the lows here, and now we've been triangulating since November. But if you notice, and these are subtle, and this is something that you always do, Barry, is you look at within these consolidations, look for signs of higher lows or lower highs or something like that. And look at this. There's just a series of them. Somebody's quietly buying this thing up and accumulating cotton. Key level for the breakout is this full square. That's at, call it 91 3/4.
Right.
But when this thing moves, man, it really, really goes. So that's why, even though we've been in this consolidation for months now, I keep saying you got to watch it, because when it breaks out, it's going to be violent.
I agree. Matter of fact, we might have to look at it next week.
Yeah, we're getting close, and see how it's even tightening up more the last few days. Cotton loves these triangles. There's triangles all over the chart. It's even the monthly and the weekly, you see triangles, and when they go, it really, really breaks. Let's go to the next one. Cocoa, quietly and sort of in an unassuming manner, this thing is really acting very well. And here's the key, right? This is what we look for. Got stopped at the full square. They really pushed it and tried to sell it, and look where it held.
Yep.
Right at the half square. and now we're pushing back up again, just kind of grinding.
And the
But
trend line.
yeah, but the grind will turn into, a massive move higher at some point, and that's why we're watching these things, or in the case of some of them like sugar and cotton, getting involved, because they're getting closer and closer to that point when the upside explosion is going to happen out of this sort of pattern. And if it doesn't, we know where we're wrong, right? In this one, if you take out the half square, you're probably going down and test the full square again and getting caught up in this chop.
Right. But it looks like the half square is pretty solid at this point. So
It
we'll
sure
see.
does. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what price does. Last one we'll look at is coffee. I talked about this one when it was down here, and I said, there's no setup yet, but we really got to watch this because we had a square out here at the low, and the way it turned off of this low was really, really interesting to me, because it was signaling that, this move to take out these lows was not a real move, but a false break. And we got a big push up. We had 6, 7, 8 days in a row up. We've started a pullback, and look where we closed on Friday. Isn't it amazing how they do that? Right on the full square. Obviously, if we can hold this full square and reverse, it's a buy.
Right.
Because, that's not only bullish from sitting on the square, but look at the structure.
Yeah.
Where we got pinned under here for 2.5 months. And now if we can sit on top of that, that's super bullish.
Yeah, coffee looks good.
Yeah. Even if we lose that, then we want to see the nature of the pullback, just like in gold, just like in silver, just like in copper. We want to watch these pullbacks off of this first thrust, because the idea is, if they hold in a bullish position like here or here and give us a higher low, the next turn up minimally should be an ABC. And if we're lucky and we catch the cycles and we catch the trend properly, we catch a third wave.
Right.
And that's when you see these things launch, like here or here. These kind of moves where you get a multi-month move where it just pushes. And that's usually coming out of a low. This was the low in 2020. You had your first move up, you had a pullback with a higher low, and then you started this. That's the objective. That's what we're trying to grab. So that's it for the commodities. The metals, as Barry reviewed, he didn't review silver, but silver's in the same position. It had a good run. It squared out. It didn't do a 90 by 90 like gold, but it did a 60 by 90. So we're going to watch the pullback there to find a good spot to buy it. Nat gas is continues to grind lower. We're watching that for potential 4-hour setups to get involved, because it's you're down 144 and 180 depending on the time frame you're looking at there, and you're into an area of support. But as that triggers, we'll bring it onto the show and review it as we see the setups form there on the lower charts. So this next week, Barry, is really important, given the squaring out and the cycles, the 90s and the 45s and the other squares that we've seen occur in many different markets this week. So what are you watching that's going to give you the clues as to the effect of these squares?
Well, I'm just watching the levels. Levels are the key thing. We know the time came in, so the next step would be to watch the levels and see how price behaves around the levels.
Mm-hmm.
Because the rest is all systematic. We're waiting for setups to show up. We have certain setups we look for that would trigger a buy, trigger a sell. So the setup comes along with that'll fit the bigger narrative or the bigger frame. Then we just take the trades.
That's right. And that's the thing about the cycles. Identifying them is one thing. Seeing their effects, it requires you to watch the individual markets and how price begins trading and how it acts against support or resistance after you identify the cycle hitting. And then that tells you, okay, that's the effect on this market. It's not sort of like a global effect on every market. Each market reacts differently, but it's more art than it is science, so to speak, when you're looking at these things and trying to decipher what the effects are.
And you have to make notes, know where the cycles came in and see if price is behaving properly according to whatever expired. Like, for example, this coffee, right? If you take the December low, so that's squared out, at least on my charts, it shows that we were out. It was 108 degrees by 216 degrees. So 108 by 216 at that middle, December. Yeah, right there. And so then you watch it, right? You watch to see, well, did it square out? If it did, there's only two ways it can move. If it's squared out, which means it's going to, leave that low alone and move higher, or we're going to mess around and do a false break and then take off. Mm-hmm. So we did the false break, took off. So now the pullbacks are all game.
Right.
So that,
yeah, because I was just looking at my notes, and I had a 101 by 101 square right here at this low.
It's okay.
Which is why I jumped on it and said, okay, let's watch and see. That's a good square. If that low holds, what's the character of the move out of here? Well, the character of the move out of here is that this was a good square.
Right.
So now we're looking and saying, okay, what's the character of this next pullback? If we hold here, super bullish. Holding here, still bullish.
Well, coming back to, even coming down there, it's still bullish.
Yep. So that's kind of what, so given all the cycles that we've observed this past week in all the different markets and the changes that are beginning to occur, this next week, the price action in each of those markets is critical to watch, because then we get a higher probability of, okay, this is the effect of that change. It's just a consolidation, or this is a reversal and it's trading like a bat out of hell in the opposite direction. Those are two different types of price actions that give you the two different types of conclusions. So,
well, listen, like one of the biggest things for traders is to know what direction, what's the direction. And, one of the benefits of using squares and this type of analysis is you isolate the low or the high. And once we confirm that, which is just 2, 3, 4 bars after that, then you trade in the new direction, right? And you take every setup in the new direction. So
you look for the setups, yep.
Yeah, and then until you run into some kind of resistance or termination at the other end, then you wait to see, well, are we going to go beyond that and sort of continue the cycle to a bigger cycle, or are we going to turn down? And so by using this, you don't have to try to catch a corner, but once you can identify the corner, then you just trade in the new direction.
Right. Trade all the setups that are supporting that new direction.
Exactly. Which is, you would think that would be obvious, right? But it's hard to, people get into all kinds of nooks and crannies and sort of lose the perspective sometimes.
That's right.
Maybe because of news. I don't know.
News is part of it, and psychology is another part. There's no question about it. Anyway, that's the bottom line. Is this week's going to be very interesting in many markets because of the hits and the reversals we saw, and it's up to us through price action to decipher what does that mean going forward, and we'll have many more clues this week to be able to do that. Anyway, have a good week, everybody. Barry, great job on the show, and have a terrific week, and let's see what the market brings us Sunday night.
Thanks, Ben. Good job also. And have a good week, everybody. Catch you next week.
Take care.
Bye.